when you're designing a fantasy setting, you run the risk of eliminating the most interesting aspect of history. Okay? When you're about to make a fantasy setting, like Lord of the Rings, okay, Chronicles of Narnia, right? Some kind of fantasy world, right? There is a chance that you as a creative, as a person designing this fantasy system, this ecosphere of magic and mystery and dragons and wonder, you run the risk of destroying, eliminating the most interesting aspect of history, and that is that throughout all of history, it's been small, unimportant individuals that have changed the world. Sometimes a group of 5 or 10 or 100 people, but often it's like one person. One person does something, they invent something, they create something, they come up with an idea. That's why Lord of the Rings, it's like Frodo. It's this unexpected guy. Like Tolkien is actually trying to represent what he finds in history. And when you go back and you look at history, it's one bell maker. It's one inventor. It's one dude who's like trying to work on a clock. And you know, some chick who goes out onto a battlefield and wasn't supposed to. You know, one individual changes history forever. And in a world like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, that story can't happen. So now let's talk about fantasy settings.
The question is, or the topic discussion is, best sort of fantasy world or setting for a TTRPG.
Okay.
What are the elements that go into choosing that?
Okay, so I think an ecosphere. You got to think of it like a living organism almost.
Yes.
Right? There needs to be room for some different stuff. Unless we're just trying to recreate the past and we're going to go playing Pendragon. You know, Pendragon's got some magic in it, but it's not like over-the-top magic. But Pendragon is basically, you're going to play in Arthurian myths, right? You're going to play the story of Arthur and the knights of the round table and all that stuff. You take some chunk of a historical setting or even a real-world setting, and then you don't really have to change the ecosphere that much. But if you want to create a fantasy world, like let's take Star Wars, for example.
Okay.
Star Wars is fantasy, not sci-fi. Okay, we'll just establish that first. I thought it was sci-fi. I was wrong. I looked at it more clearly.
To the untrained eye, I feel like it would be sci-fi because that's what everyone thought it was. I think when it came out, but talking to you and many other people, I'm like, oh, it is a fantasy world.
So it's a fantasy world where there's knights of the round. They got laser swords. Okay, they're religious sect of people who look for heretics and stuff, you know, and like and you have magic, but it's undefined, really. Okay, and it all works. There's an ecosphere of Star Wars that works very well for storytelling because there are power boundaries, and it works all the way up until you get into the Rey version, like the sequel saga. Rey starts like healing people and doing all sorts of stuff that we've only seen like little bits of in games, but now we have like this established power that creeps up. But Star Wars is an ecosystem that you can kind of play within, and there's room to move around. You know, with politics, there's room to move around because you got to think about like a fantasy system. Like, well, what sort of stories could we play there? You know, like what kind of stories? In Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it's hard to figure out the stories you can play there because the power creep happens so quickly. My friend Argus from Discord was talking with me yesterday about, he thinks there's only one story that you can tell in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. He's going to make a video about it. I'm interested to see what he makes, but
don't spoil
I won't. I'm not stealing his idea. But the point is, it is difficult to create an ecosystem for fantasy storytelling in a tabletop RPG because once you start introducing magic and religion and gods and like all the fantasy ideas, like certain creatures, right? If you invent a creature, it is now existing in this like biosphere, and it's possible that you accidentally create the alpha predator for this world. And something that's like, oh, well, it doesn't make any sense how you would ever have people going out and expanding into new territories when there are dragons around, right? You'd have to have knights everywhere. Everyone would have to be a knight. Everyone would have to be a wizard, right? It's like at some point you create some kind of magical creature that it's like, well, now it's, there's mind flayers here. It's hard for me to articulate how, would a dwarf ever mind down knowing that there's a creature that just goes in and chops into your brain and takes you over? And, it's like, right. At some point you make something where you go, world is now broken, a time turner, right? So it's difficult to create.
Yeah. Well, I feel you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting, is that when you create a world where magic is a thing and magic is common, it kind of goes into every situation is, to quote Ryan George, what is it? Super easy, barely named.
Okay, yeah, sure, right, right.
Right. It's kind of like just throw this fireball or like turn and.
If you make a magic, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you make a magic system that has solutions to a lot of life's problems, you start eliminating the answer to a question. Why would someone invent a gun? Why would someone invent a clock? Why would someone ever invent this thing to fix this problem? And so, in that magical system, you have solved some of life's issues. Like we in history, as humans have things that have been trouble, and we haven't been able to figure out how to solve this problem. If you have spells that just heal people, right? Like boom, magical healing. It's like, so there's no barbers or doctors in this world, right? Because like everyone's just going to go to a magical clear. You're really going to take a risk of having some dude chop your leg off
when you can just go
right. And then it's like, well, and if magic is potentially super easy in this setting, it then becomes the job of the dungeon master to curate all the things in the world. And that can be one, it can be a lot of work. Two, it can put the dungeon master up against the players to some degree. You go, hey, we're playing in the world, and all you're allowed to be is a fighter or a ranger, and you can't have any magic powers as the ranger, or you can be a paladin with no magic powers. It's like you start taking things out of the world, and now you have a play group that's like, well, we didn't have access to all those fun things we wanted. So TTRPG fantasy world design, I think it's actually one of the more difficult things.
I would agree with you, because there's something, referencing back to Lord of the Rings, there's something so gratifying about the underdog, someone you don't expect, to actually become the hero. And if you give that, and it's usually people who don't have power, who aren't very strong, who are not experts in the field of defeating whatever it is that needs to get defeated. And you had mentioned a Bellmaker story the other day, that throughout history, it's true. When you think of historic moments, you think of the people, you're like, they're scientists, obviously, or they're experts in the field that they made revelations, in. And really, it's not. It's people who have nothing to do with this field. They just happen to know one component, maybe, and someone's like, we're desperate, we need you to come and figure this out. Or people thinking outside the box, and not necessarily people who know exactly how to fix the problem, exactly the people to go to. But yeah, I thought that Bellmaker story was really interesting.
So there was a bellmaker in the time of Constantinople, and he ends up being the reason why Constantinople falls. And I mentioned this story, I'm just clarifying for people watching. And the reason why the bellmaker is the reason for Constantinople falling is because for hundreds of years they've been trying to invade this city, take over the city, but they can't get through the walls. They can't approach it by the front because it's covered around by water. And they can't get to the back because there's a mountain pass. And so you have this Christian kingdom of Constantinople that's like, I think it was like 500 or 900 years, no one conquers the city. The Persians, I think it's either the Persians or Muslims, find a bellmaker in Germany, and they have him design a cannon. Like, they have him design a cannon that had never been designed before, just a massive cannon. They put him on the opposite side of the river, and they just start lobbing massive, giant iron balls at the city of Constantinople until they can break the walls open. And it's one dude who changed history forever. And I think...
And the reason they go to this bellmaker is because he knows how to bend.
He knows how to bend metal. Right.
And to shape it.
He's a significantly qualified craftsman for making bells, and the shape of a bell is very similar to the shape of a cannon, and they're like, that guy, get him,
Yeah.
So, and that's an interesting mystery that you can play out in certain tabletop RPG fantasy story systems, right? And I think so back to your question, which is like, what's the best fantasy system? I think we could add like a few generic lines or edges when you're creating a fantasy setting. It's like, okay, if you're going to put magic in your game, and you might want to put magic in your game because it's fun to dabble with the idea of powers and superpowers and magic and things.
Right.
If you're going to put magic in your game, it has to have limiters. It has to be dangerous. Like 1, limiters, 2, dangerous, 3, weird. It has to be something that you can reasonably argue the majority of society would go, I don't want that near me. That's got unintended side effects. I want to live in places where that's not happening.
Right. Where you rely more on science.
Yeah, real stuff, right?
Stuff.
Yeah. We use cooking utensils when making our cake. We don't just do prestidigitation cake or something, right?
Cake, yeah.
We don't just do magical goodberry, create food and water or whatever, right? We like because in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, it's hard to reason why are there bakers, right? Like hey, you're a baker? You seriously? You should be going to Wizard College to learn how to create food and water and create your cakes.
Right. Like, why would you? Yeah. Why would you make it hard on yourself when it could be just so easy?
Right.
And you sell more and you make more of a profit. So yeah, I understand. I agree.
Yeah. So you're gonna add magic. I think the magic has to be weird, dangerous,
scarce, maybe.
It doesn't have to be scarce in a forced way. If you make magic dangerous, like I'm about to try and cast a spell and maybe I blow up in the process. You make magic dangerous, you're automatically going to put a limiter on whether or not people just want to cast magic for random odds and ends. Like, do I want to try and make our 2-day journey quicker and possibly die in the process? We're just going to walk. We're going to walk there because that's reasonable, right?
Right.
So if it's dangerous, you're already putting a limiter in place. If it's weird, now the limiter that's already there about it being dangerous adds a social component where it's like, if the rest of the world is going, whoa, what did you just did that dangerous thing? Like, what do you do? Get out of here. Like, right?
Yeah.
You can't live with the rest of us civilized people. Go in the woods, weirdo. Right? That adds another component that makes the magic more reasonable. Because like when you think of the real world, like we have the idea of witches. We have the idea of like cults that do rituals and stuff. And we get this because there have been people throughout history that have been like, yes, we're going to sacrifice this thing on this altar and do some kind of weird ritual.
Right.
And that's been a thing. There have been Drua throughout history. There have been witches throughout history. And there have been societies that go, keep that crap out of here. Like we don't know if it's doing real stuff or not, but we don't like the way it looks. It's odd. You collecting your chicken legs and eyeballs and stuff. Get out of here with that. So that's real. People respond that way. Like we don't want to be mixing and dabbling in extra dimensional stuff or whatever. Like we just kind of want to go to work and come home.
Right.
So make magic weird. And I think one of the other things you have to do is you have to make the gods work out. Because like you have a dilemma. Like, how did this whole world get created? Right? What's the creation story? Because you can real quick get into stupid creation stories that it's now hard to structure world building. Because religion is a big thing. In any fantasy setting that you're going to mess around with fantasy ideas, there should be religion. Like there should be cults, there should be fanatics, there should be normal religious. Like there should be some aspect of, because everyone believes in something. And if you have a world where no one believes in anything, it's like I don't even know how to play that character.
Yeah,
like they don't
really
believe in anything. Like, oh, I'm just a total narcissist. That's it. I'm God.
You have to have something that's going to determine right from wrong in you, I think.
Hopefully,
morality.
Right. I mean, obviously, people are going to bring whatever their external ideas of morality. Like me, Nate, I'm going to play this character, and I'm going to drag and drop my Christian belief system in there. Now, I'm not playing a Christian in this game necessarily, but I'm going to adopt the morality that I have from, like, the 10 Commandments or something like, and I'm going to apply those to the game, even if I'm not a Christian. That's probably what I'm doing. I'm extrapolating and taking my moral framework and bringing it into the game.
Sure.
the game world needs to have its own organized system of those things. You can't just have a game world where it's like there's a thieves guild and a murderers guild and a whatever. How do these people feel about the thing they're doing? How does the world feel about the thing they're doing?
Right.
You start introducing those things without gods in overarching systems, and you get really strange results. If you just make fantasy world with no gods, no dictatorship, no hierarchy of power, why haven't the Thieves Guild taken over the whole world? Why isn't everyone part of the Thieves Guild? Mm-hmm. Why are the Thieves Guild honoring each other? It's like you start getting into these questions that the can is being kicked down the road forever, and ultimately you have to come to, because the god of this, in Elder Scrolls there's different gods, and I think, the Morag Tong is like the Murderers Guild, and they worship this one god of darkness and the Brotherhood, Dark Brotherhood, and there's a way that they order themselves based on that god. I think you just need something more than just what D&D 5th edition does, where it's we got Odin and we got Thor and we got Grumsh, and we just made up a bunch of gods for a bunch of different things, and we have a pantheon of gods, and it really, when you come to look at it, it's all very silly. So you need magic to be dangerous. You need some kind of religious systems.
Yeah.
What else do you think?
Geography.
Geography. That's an interesting one. Okay, what do you mean by geography?
The lay of the land.
Okay.
Are they?
You mean like a world map or something?
Are they? Okay. Are they a water world? Are they?
Oh, okay. Sure.
In the hills? Is it a city?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Okay, no, that's actually a really good one, because you have tabletop RPGs. For example, if you were playing The Walking Dead, we know what the geography is going to be based on our preconceived notions about zombie. Yeah, right. It's all going to be ruins and empty cars, and if we're playing Delta Green, which is kind of like an X-Files type game, we also know some of the geography. It's going to be modern day 20th century, buildings, America or whatever. Buildings, offices. Okay, so geography. Yeah, right. And if we're in a fantasy setting, there's some of that geography aspect where maybe the book helps you tackle some of that with cool artwork or something. Like Wild Sea had a lot of that, where it's you're driving on the tops of trees, and now you kind of can see the world a little bit.
Right.
Geography, you're right. Geography is important, and geography is going to inform. It's going to inform some of the game campaign design.
Yes.
Like almost the way the story is going to work. Right. Like if you're playing one of these games in a modern setting, it might be episodic. You might be playing little 4-act story structures or 5-act story structures that end, and then you go back to your home base and you get a new mission or whatever. So
it also informs the type of people you have in.
Oh, sure. But that I think would probably be more foundational. The geography is kind of above the what is this world question. And if you're looking at Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, it's it's kind of the Dark Ages. It's kind of Middle Ages Europe, but it's also not. But it also is. It's those different layerings. If you're looking at another one of some of those sword and sorcery things, they're basically going what if 500 AD was magical, supremely magical. It was just there was wizards and whatever, but it wasn't over the top magic. It's or Conan. Conan's another thing. It's it's kind of like real world, Earth, but not. There's some but not in there. You could kind of go. Is that almost like if you had a fantasy setting set in South Africa or something? Is that similar? Yeah, but with a few changes. I think the geography is probably informed by the setting. Does that make sense?
Yes, the setting. So
here, I'll give you an example.
Yes.
In the Divine Comedy game system that we're playing right now, the geography that you're able to explore is very much informed by the setting, the history of the world, right? So in the history of the world that you're playing in, there have been 3 ages. In the first age, not a lot of people know about this stuff going on. It was very different. In the second age, it was a lot of functional stuff. There was magic was a little bit prevalent. There were gods present in the world. There was it was a weird world to be in. In the age of the world that you're playing in right now, something happened in that second age that was cataclysmic that made the gods go away. and no one really knows what it was, but it wrecked a lot of the world. And so there are ruins that you would go and find. There are places where you would go and travel into the world, and you'd go, what is this thing? What is this tunnel underground that I'm going into? It's all paved and cobbled together. Someone made this thing. This is the creation. Why is no one here? That's weird. Right? So it's a world that is the ruins of a previous civilization.
I see.
And that's very real. Like that's a real thing that exists. Like if you were to go into New York, you would find a city built over a city. And down in the lower reaches of New York, there are things from before, and apparently there's whole videos of people going on YouTube like what's this place? Like we found something.
Yeah.
So
when you say setting, you mean history.
Yeah, kind of the setting. So the setting is
which is the next thing that I have to discuss.
The setting is what's the story of this world? How is it made up? What are the people groups? That's a good question. Okay, so setting is a broad idea that isn't necessarily connected to the engine of a game. Like this is like Dungeons and Dragons. You roll a d20 and you check this skill number, and that's the engine of the game. The setting of the Forgotten Realms in Dungeons and Dragons is there's the Sword Coast, and there's Baldur's Gate, and there's Waterdeep, and there's these different towns, and the setting is kind of it's this high fantasy, magic is prevalent everywhere. It's this weird world that the history of it is kind of being informed by all the geopolitical stuff combined with the sort of the age that we are declaring this is. This is an age where people are not using rifles and pistols, except if they are. Forgotten Realms is a really hard one to kind of look at because it's so muddy with so much just lore thrown in. It almost doesn't make sense anymore. So I don't think it's a great example to pick as a setting, and I think it's a great example of a setting to pick and go, it's weird and doesn't work.
Okay.
But,
so we've got magic.
Yeah, magic needs to be. Magic is an important component to a fantasy setting. Yeah.
Yes.
Gods.
Some sort of history.
Geopolitical stuff going on, right? Like a geopolitical system that is possibly understandable to the player's characters. Like they might go, well, we kind of. Either they know a little bit about the town that they're from and what's going on, but they probably need to know a little bit of the overreaching ideas.
Right.
If there is something like in the Divine Comedy, there is a weird aspect to how death works. And that is something that players and player characters either need to be informed about early on, or they need to learn it fairly quickly. They need to discover it through discovering the world and go, oh, dead things don't always go to the afterlife, and that's bad. And that's a weird nature of how this world works. When things die, it doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to. Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about tone?
Tone.
Because I know there's obviously a dark. You can do a dark tone where everything's very grim, everything's dark, everything's raw. We're miserable, everything's starving. All these things,
Everyone's starving.
Everyone's starving. There's these grim, awful things, I
think tone is very important, and I think. Go ahead. What were you going to say? I have thoughts on it. But
I was just saying that I think that's very important because you have to tone can determine the type of encounters you would have and the type of world that you have. Because if you have if it's a dark tone, then you're going to want make things kind of dystopian maybe or
you can. And okay, so all right, so if we're gonna play a game. And it's gonna be in some sort of grim dark, not dark, but if it's gonna be in some sort of dystopian world where bad stuff is happening, obviously there needs to be hope layered into it.
Oh yeah,
because people are gonna have a hard time running those characters without just going just kill me, just kill me, right? You have to have some hope layered into it, but it's okay if that hope that's layered into it is the player's characters. They can be the hope in the world. It could be that everyone else in this, you think of think of like the show Avatar, right? They come to this like kind of water village where everything's mutated and it sucks because there's pollution from the Fire Nation coming in here, and Katara becomes the painted lady and like unpoisons the water and brings food to the people.
Right.
And this is a hopeless situation. This town has no hope. It's comedically portrayed because it's Avatar, but otherwise, like, these people are all dying. Like, they have mutated, their brain cancer going on, like, and then the characters come into this setting and they go, let's bring some hope.
Right.
And so you don't have to have the hope sprinkled throughout the world, but I do think it is important that the world not be so hopeful people can't understand it, because...
It's hopeless?
No. Not be so hopeful.
Oh, hopeful.
Life is not like that. Life is filled with things that you are aspirational for, but you're not going to get. And you know you're not going to get it. You're like, I really want that thing, or I really need this thing, or this job, or my goodness, what's going to happen with my kids, or someone just got cancer. Like, are they going to...
It's very much like that in the fantasy world. You want to have that similarity that the player, not the character, the player can connect to and understand that this world's going to be a struggle.
Yep.
I'm going to have to keep forging. There's got to be hope. There's got to be something more than this. Like that, those kind of feelings need to be in this world for their characters, so it's easier for the players to play their characters, I think. Because then they understand the...
It's a balance that I think it's a balance that has to be built in from the start. Because we've played in a few different systems, and yes, a game master can grab a game system they like Shadow Dark or Dragonbane or Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. They can grab a game system they like, and they go, I like this system, so now I'm going to spend the next year and a half, 2 years, writing out all the nature of the world that exists. I'm going to curate and pull all the spells that exist. I'm going to establish which classes and which races exist in this world.
Right.
And I'm going to structure the whole thing out. I'm going to make the geopolitical system. I'm going to make this aspect of the world. You could do that forever.
Yeah.
Like there's people who are doing that, and it's taken them 20 years, and they're still building that thing. And I mean, like how people design video games with a whole team of people, and they go, here's the mechanics of how this geopolitical thing works, or this thing works, or whatever. You could do all that. That's not me, really. I'm not someone who'd like to go in and I'm just going to make all this stuff, because I'm too compulsive. I'm so compulsive that I would probably never start the game. I would rather take someone else's compulsive work and examine it and go, let me see, oh wow, that history is interesting, or that lore is interesting, or that connectivity is interesting. Wow, I love the way that thing simulates something from real life, but weird with a magical twist. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's the hope aspect of it needs to be built in, where it's like hopeful world with hopeless aspects. Something like that. Like it's a hopeful world, like hey, there is bright and shining, but you're gonna have to fight for it.
Right.
There is that sun coming up over the hilltop with Gandalf running down, but there's also that, like, dude, we're gonna ride out and we're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like that. You have to have that thing. And so I think that actually has to be built into the system almost mechanically.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons that I really love the Divine Comedy system, is because it's built in. There are mechanics that represent that hopefulness. You see it in like the divinity dice. You see it in the luck dice.
Yep.
There are these aspects where you can kind of pull out a last minute ditch effort. Your character's going to die, but you might accomplish your goal. And I think that's cool. There's probably other game systems that do it. I just haven't seen it very often.
Okay.
I rather like a game system, a fantasy system, having those mechanical layers kind of like built in to the setting.
Yeah.
What else you got?
All right. So just to go back.
Yep.
So we decided that the level of magic, the big forces in the world are gods.
There needs to be some gods. There needs to be some religion, some gods.
Some kind of history.
History, geopolitics.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The tone can be.
Tone is important.
Tone's
right?
important.
Yep.
What about threats?
I think threats is probably built off of tone and also possibly the gods. But yeah, so you'd have those underpinnings of like, here's the gods, And let's say you're going to build a system. You want to make it kind of simple, right?
Okay.
And you're going to go. Let me go with something. Obviously, I'm not going to go. Christian setting. Christ came and died for everyone, and like make that a fantasy world. I mean, you could,
yeah.
but maybe you go with something simple. Duality, right? Like there's an evil God and there's a good God, right? You don't put too much thought into it, but you got the evil God and the good God, and maybe they have some way they interact in the world, and maybe they're sort of equals. The good one might be more powerful. You work all that stuff out, but then each one of those things is going to have factions that worship it, right? And if you look at evil in the world and you portray it comically, it's going to be difficult for players to play with it because they're not going to understand it. But if you look at evil in the world and you portray it like realistically, most people aren't doing evil things for the sake of doing evil stuff. They're doing good things wrong, right? Like pleasure is a good thing, right? But it can be twisted wrong. Having money is a good thing, but greed is wrong, right? So you get someone in real life. You get someone who has some goal or some aspiration, and it's twisted by evil. But the actual thing that they wanted was initially a good thing. It was it was good. They're cheating to get it or something,
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's C.S. Lewis. I didn't come up with. Yeah, C.S. Lewis. Yeah.
C.S. Lewis. He sounds smart.
He is smart. Yeah. Anyway, so that's real. That's how real life works. The people who are doing evil stuff are just they're aimed at good things but corrupted. So you just make a fantasy world that's similar. Take those your dualistic gods or whatever, and there are factions that worship this one, and they go, yeah, we want just like in Star Wars. It's very simple. It's like there's the light side of the Force, so you do patience and take your time to get there, and don't have a wife, and your life's going to be miserable. Right. And then over here, it's like have all the wives, and you use electricity on people. For the dark side. It's not. The emperor is not striving for evil. He's striving for order at all costs. And it becomes evil because he's like, I'm not interested in any of these people's own divinity or choices. You are my puppets. I'm going to have order at all costs. That becomes evil. Yeah. Order's not evil. At all costs is evil.
Yes. Okay, so then
evil factions come from gods generally. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of like the threat aspect of it. Okay, so the ingredients to making a fantasy world cake would be the amount of magic, how it's used, some sort of gods, religion type of thing, history, geopolitical aspects, and tone.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I think that's actually
to make a good cake.
I think that's there might be other aspects of it, but those are probably connective tissue areas. And when I'm like looking at a fantasy system, like I'm looking at Warcrow right now.
Yes.
And in Warcrow, I find a lot of those aspects. Like for a war game, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with the level that the magic works at. Because it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Like magic is super scary. I was very interested in how the geopolitics of the world work, all the history and like how things have gotten to be where they're at right now. I'm surprised this is not a tabletop RPG. In fact, this would be a really kick-ass tabletop RPG because it's a world where
talking about it, just talking about it and reading the lore in the book. I forget that it's a war game.
Yeah. It's a very narrative war game. Yeah. I think that's probably why I'm so interested in it. But no, I think the connective tissue area is the aspect that, like, once you start establishing those preliminary things, you start branching down, then you're going to go, well, now we have all these factions. How do they feel about each other? What's their interaction with each other? Are they fighting? Or are they at peace? Who is at peace with whom?
Yeah.
And once you have all that, you have like a real world that players can jump into and inhabit characters. I don't have a lot of examples of tabletop RPG systems that I have looked at that I go, it covers all those bases. There's actually very few. I think a lot of tabletop RPGs, the problem is they're being designed as game systems. They're being designed as engines. Almost like video game engines, where it's like someone else needs to come in here and build all the underpinning of the story. I'm just providing you with Shadow Dark. I'm providing you, Kelsey Dion is providing you with a system to roll D20s and just make stuff up as you go. Okay? She's not providing you with world building options, with connectivity, with lore, with historicity, with a magic system that makes sense in the game world. None of that stuff is provided. You as the dungeon master need to create all those things. And most tabletop RPGs are designed with that in mind. Let me make a system. And not all, obviously. I think a lot of the sort of modern game settings, like I mentioned Delta Green, you're basically just going, it's the real world but weird. It's the real world. Like, yeah, this is a world where, where the Catholic Church was a thing and the Pope is a thing and, whatever. President Clinton was a thing. It's like, this is a...
Forks are used as spoons, spoons are used as forks.
No, that's... No.
Oh, no. That's pretty not...
It's not... It's weird like there's werewolves and vampires and stuff. Yeah, it's weird like X-Files.
Okay.
So it's like there's a guy who can sneak through corridors or something.
Yeah.
But in the fantasy ones, yeah, I think that'd actually be one of the things I say is a chief problem or concern I have with tabletop RPGs in general. Most companies designing them are not designing them complete. They're almost being designed the way video games are designed now, where it's like, yeah, we made this live service thing. Pick up this compendium next year. Pick up this compendium.
Which, to be fair, makes sense because video games are so freaking popular.
Sure.
So why wouldn't you want to make your game that you're trying to sell and, become popular?
That's a trick. That's bait.
I know.
That's bait.
I'm not saying it's right.
You wouldn't want to do that because you actually want TTRPGs to be successful.
Right.
And for a tabletop RPG to be a successful game, you need to be able to get longevity out of the play.
Agreed.
And if you can't get longevity out of the play, like... Honestly, what you're trying to do with a tabletop RPG is create some kind of game experience that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Right.
You couldn't get it from a video game or from watching a show. It is a wholly unique game experience. Like, it's not quite entertainment.
Right.
It's not quite, ad-lib theater. It's a weird thing that's very niche. And if you as a game developer are developing a game system and you haven't taken these things into mind with the setting, you're leaving that on the player's side. They either need to cope their way through it or not care or something or fail. It's like cope or fail almost. So yeah, I think it is a problem with TTRPGs. And since game companies keep coming out and keep making games and there's 1,000 games made every year, and no one really goes through and goes, we probably should curate how we're building these things. We probably should go story first, then system. Because there's plenty of systems. There's D20 systems, D100 systems, D12 systems. Like, the systems is not the interesting part. The connectivity is the interesting part.
Okay.
I've rambled on for long enough.
All right.
Have we gone through all the questions?
I think we've gone through. Yeah, we just basically it was trying to get the main components of a good fantasy world for a TTRPG.
For a TTRPG, yeah. Okay. All right.
Thanks so much for talking with me.
Yeah, no problem.
I am Lex. This is Nate.
I'm Nate.
This has been Tabletop Family Games, and if you
someday you will get the name of our channel.
The name of the channel?
It's not Tabletop Family Games.
What is it?
I think it's Family Tabletop.
Oh,
FTT, Family
better.
Tabletop. Okay.
Yes, that sounds better. Sorry.
Okay,
hold on.
You're going to cut this? Do not cut this. No.
Okay.
God bless you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. If you have found a fantasy game system that you think is totally well made and is absolutely awesome, and it has all these things that we've discussed and covered, and I should take a look at it, I would be happy to. So post it down in the comments below, and I will look at it. And for you people making castles and crusades, I've looked at your system. All right. God bless you. Bye-bye.